Venezuela's Foreign Minister Jorge Arriaza has met with the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Arriaza ratified the commitment made by the Bolivarian Revolution with the United Nations 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. He also said multilateralism is needed to guarantee peace and that Venezuela continues to suffer interference in the country's internal affairs.
There is an extremist supremacist government headed by Donald Trump that has launched a series of attacks against the Venezuelan people. Venezuela is under an economic blockade similar to the one Cuba has been suffering for 60 years. The world banking system is afraid to work with Venezuela because of these sanctions. We have taken the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals as the core in our policies for the next 6 years. We have been doing it since 2015. President Nicolás Maduro is committed to develop our national policies in the same line promoted by the United Nations for a better country, a better region, and a better society.
Meanwhile, one of Venezuela's opposition leaders, Claudio Fermín, has said that only citizens can act on the country's internal matters. He referenced a recent interventionist statement made by the so-called Lima Group, which sought to undermine the country's electoral process.
I highly value what happened here in Venezuela on May the 20th, 2018. Those millions of citizens who took to the polls are very important. The fact is, this government is being criticized for many reasons, and although I agree with many of them, there are many more which I do not agree. So independently from all criticism, what validates any country's sovereignty are their citizens, not foreign ministers or presidents. Let's not consider Maduro for a moment. Let's think of the future. This is a small club of heads of state who have decided to undermine a government for not agreeing with them.
And important political figures from the world have spoken against the United States' attitude towards Venezuela. For example, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that the United States' influence killed any chance for dialogue between the Venezuelan government and the opposition. Lavrov added that the approach of the United States towards Venezuela highlights its attempts to undermine governments around the world.
We have heard talk that pushed for military intervention in Venezuela, that the United States will now recognize as the president of Venezuela the new head of the country's National Assembly, not Nicolás Maduro. All this is very alarming and shows the U.S. approach for undermining governments they don't like. There is a priority for them in Latin America and in other regions.
In other topics, the British Prime Minister Theresa May has won the no-confidence motion by a short margin. With 325 votes in favor and 306 against, May will remain Prime Minister till the no-confidence motion was presented on Tuesday by Labour's leader Jeremy Corbyn after a majority of lawmakers rejected May's Brexit deal. This has been called by the biggest political defeat of any government since the 1920s.
I'm pleased that this House has expressed its confidence in the government tonight. I do not take this responsibility lightly, and my government will continue its work to increase our prosperity, guarantee our security, and to strengthen our union. And yes, we will also continue to work to deliver on the solemn promise we made to the people of this country to deliver on the result of the referendum and leave the European Union.
Our correspondent Pablo Navarrete with the details from London.
A short while ago, it was announced that British Prime Minister Theresa May had won a no-confidence vote put forward by the Labour Party and their leader Jeremy Corbyn yesterday, following the crushing defeat suffered by British Prime Minister Theresa May in her Brexit vote in Parliament, where she lost by 230 votes, the biggest loss in recent history by a government. Now, today she survived by a mere 19 votes, with 325 voting in favour or against the motion and 306 in favour. Now, this means that Theresa May has survived in her government for the moment, although there is nothing stopping the Labour Party or the Labour Party from putting forward the motion of no confidence again. Must remember that Margaret Thatcher did it, I think, 7 times in 1979 before coming to power. Now, the British Prime Minister, before the vote, there had been a discussion about the motion in Parliament, in which Jeremy Corbyn called Theresa May's government a zombie government, and it is certainly true that for the past month, or at least for a while now, that Theresa May's authority has been challenged on numerous occasions, both within her party. She survived a motion of no confidence from within her party, and the government has suffered numerous defeats, with many analysts saying that they are in government but not in power. So Theresa May has offered to speak to the opposition parties for what she claims is to look for a solution, although the Jeremy Corbyn has said that unless her government rules out a no-Brexit scenario, it will not enter into these talks. Now, Theresa May has said she will come back to Parliament on Monday for another vote on the deal. There's nothing to say that there will be a significant difference, so she will be defeated once again. And the paralysis and that Brexit has caused in her government, her ability to govern, seems likely to continue. It's very difficult to predict what will happen. She survived by a slim margin tonight, but she is severely weakened, and her government is also very much not really in control. So this is how things stand at the moment.
Thank you, Pablo. And police in Brazil have fired rubber bullets and tear gas at protesters demonstrating against a hike in the price of public transport. The police also blocked others from reaching the demonstration taking place on main avenues of Sao Paulo.
We were only making our war cry. Nobody was doing anything against the police, but they started throwing bombs at us. Without any reason, they threw tear gas. We were just sitting on the ground and chatting.
From Sao Paulo, our correspondent Ignacio Lemus gave us this report earlier.
We are currently at the famous Paulista Avenue, where students are protesting against the increase of prices in public transportation from 4 reals to 4 reals and 30 cents. Police tried to stop demonstrations shortly after it started. There is a lot of tension at this moment. Police have stopped students from entering the Constellation Avenue. Police also fired tear gas and rubber bullets at the protesters, but the students continue with their demonstrations. It's important to remember that President Jair reduced the minimum wage for 2019, but at the same time prices for public transport are increasing. That is why students are protesting. We will keep you updated on the clashes between protesters and police.
And the Argentinian President Mauricio Macri has met with Brazilian counterpart Jair Bolsonaro in Brasilia. Bolsonaro greeted Macri at the Planalto Presidential Palace. The two leaders discussed the future of the Mercosur regional bloc, as well as border security and other defense issues. They also refused to recognize the elect government of Venezuela. Macri is the first foreign leader to visit the new Brazilian president. Like this, we've come to a first break here from the South. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and my personal account at Laura P. Telesur. Stay with us. We are back. We start in Peru, where a company owned by the President Martín Vizcarra has been linked to the Odebrecht case and will now be investigated. The Congress has approved an investigation on the consortium that built the South Interoceanic Highway with Odebrecht between 2006 and 2008. The consortium hired a company owned by Vizcarra, and the president now has denied this accusation. And thousands of workers in Peru have taken to the streets to reject a government's reform that is hurting labor rights. More in the following story.
Workers do not want to be exploited anymore. Over 200 trade unions joined together to demand the government repeal a reform that has hurt labor rights. It was established as a way to supposedly promote competitiveness and productivity in the private sector.
We want to say to Mr. Vizcarra that workers and Peruvians as a whole have not given him a blank check to implement labor reforms and cut back the right of the workers. If Mr. Vizcarra does not repeal the decree, workers' unions will call for a national strike all across the country, and he will be the responsible if there is a social upheaval.
Workers will not accept attacks against their rights on labor stability, on collective negotiation, against benefits they have historically earned.
We will not allow them to take away what little we have.
He must think about the working class because we earn so little, and yet they take all the money. It shouldn't be like that.
This reform is also being questioned by several experts.
What he's doing is reducing revenues and the purchasing power of workers. Purchasing power is going to start going in the opposite direction of our economy's growth. We have to think of more competitiveness and productivity, but not at the expense of workers.
Experts assure that Peru has a 40-year history of cutting back rights. Informal work alone has grown from 25% to 75%.
If I want to end informal work, attacking something that does not generate this type of work, like the rights of the workers, will not work. It will only produce more poverty, more insecurity, but informal work will continue growing.
According to experts, one of the goals of these neoliberal policies is to destroy trade unions, which in 1990 counted for 23% of the economically active population, and today they only reach.
Now we go to Chile, where 4 people have been arrested after clashes with the police. Riot police fired tear gas and water cannons at dozens of Chilean fishermen protesting against the law of cuttlefish capture in the southern town of Talcahuano. Demonstrators set barricades on fire and blocked access to the harbor. Industrial fishermen said the new law threatens their rights because it only allows artisan fishermen to capture the mollusks. And the Campesino Workers Union Tupac Katari in Bolivia have thrown their support behind President Evo Morales in this year's upcoming elections. Primary elections in the Andean nation are set for the end of January, followed by the general elections in October. Meanwhile, the implementation of universal health care has been supported by citizens. It will benefit more than 5 million Bolivians who do not have medical insurance. And Argentina will need at least 4 years to lower poverty, according to a report from the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean. A CLACS report also said a radical change is needed from the current policies of Macri's government. The Commission estimated that the number of underprivileged people in the region has risen to 184 million. That's roughly 30% of Latin America's population.
The stories of Hondurans fleeing their country are all very similar. They say they do not have any options here, so they leave to protect their lives.
On April 9th of 2016, I was shot. The bullet went right through me. I sought justice, but authorities never solved my case.
Young people make up the majority of this second caravan. Their hopelessness and fear for the future has forced them to look for new opportunities.
There have been so many deaths. It's difficult not to be affected by them, so I want to be far away.
Many migrants have been victims of violence, Now they have to leave their families.
My mother is sick, and now she's going to be alone. She got shot the same day when I was attacked.
Daily violence has created panic and fear among the population, especially in those who live in the most dangerous areas.
There was a massacre where I was working. They told me they were going to kill me too. That is why I'm fleeing. There's a lot of violence and crime, and we're starving too.
A large percentage of people in the first and second migrant caravans are young people, so the future of Hondurans is fleeing from the country in order to save their own lives.
And Colombian authorities has partially closed down the Ituango Dam hydroelectric project. This happened after a 40-meter wild hole was found underground. Last week, the government activated an alert plan to monitor possible risks around the dam. Around 1,000 rescue personnel have been working to make sure all communities surrounding the dam have been properly evacuated. And Cuba and Belize have committed to strengthen bilateral relations. President Miguel Díaz-Canel met with Belize Prime Minister Dan Barrow, who is in an official visit to Cuba. For over 2 decades, Belize and Cuba have enjoyed mutual cooperation in health and education. And Guyana's acting Chief of Justice will give a ruling by the end of January on last month's no-confidence motion that led to the government's downfall. The validity of the no-confidence motion is being challenged in the High Court on the grounds that the vote of MP Sharondas Persad was invalid because he holds a Canadian passport. Time for a second break. More news when we're back. Welcome back. In Greece, Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras managed to defend his agreement to normalize relations with Macedonia. With 151 votes in favor from a total of 299, Tsipras overcame a motion of no confidence and avoided the need to move the planned general election to an earlier date. The Prime Minister will submit the agreement reached with Macedonian Prime Minister Zoran Zaev to Parliament. Both leaders hope to definitely bury this historic dispute over the legitimacy of Macedonia's name. And Kenya's opposition leader has met with a relative of persons killed on Tuesday's terror attack at a hotel. Raila Odinga visited the funeral home where more than 100 mourners gathered. The opposition leader condemned the security forces for taking swift action. He also sent a message to Al-Shabaab, who have since claimed responsibility for the attack that killed 14 persons.
If the intention of the terrorists is to try to intimidate and cow the people of Kenya, they are dialing a wrong number. The people of Kenya will not be cowed by this kind of dastardly act of violence. This actually helps to fortify our unity as a people.
And the unrest due to fuel price protests has left travelers from Zimbabwe stranded. Bus passengers traveling to Zimbabwe from South Africa found themselves stranded in Johannesburg as cross-border buses canceled their routes. This has also blocked the flow of goods into Zimbabwe from the neighboring countries.
We were supposed to go to Harare, Zimbabwe now. We are coming from Port Elizabeth, but we can't proceed because they are saying things are tough. The buses are being banned and the roads are blocked. It's total shutdown. So as for today, we have to sleep here in Joburg.
An Iranian news anchor from the station Press TV is being held in detention center in Washington, D.C. No formal charges have been leveled against Hashemi, who is a United States citizen, and reports have indicated that Hashemi had her hijab removed against her will and that she was denied access to halal food. Relatives were unable to contact Hashemi for over 48 hours. She was arrested at the St. Louis airport. And the Press TV CEO gave a press conference about the case earlier on this Wednesday.
We hereby call on the U.S. government officials to talk about her accusation, about her detention place and the reason for her detention anytime soon, because it seems that being transparent toward the world opinion is the best help that we can have for her release. We do not spare any efforts to do any legal action for her release. And this commitment, this is our ethical commitment, legal commitment, and administrative commitment regarding Ms. Hashemi. But with regard to our knowledge about the U.S. government, especially under the anti-terrorism law that is there in that country, without any pretext, without any indictment, they can actually arrest people and then detain people for years and then could release them without any accusations, or they may continue the arrest.
Like this, we've come to the end of this brief, but you can visit our website, telesurenglish.net, where you can find opinion articles, more news, and our special interviews. Continue with Telesur, connecting the Global Thousands. Until next time, thank you for watching.